Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking at the tank behind me, and after all the time that I've spent on the trail and not in the woods, it's sort of frustrating. This is like, man, I feel like a drug addict. I gotta get in there. Well, thank you so much for the incredibly warm welcome. It's great to be here. Certainly it's great to be at a Bass Pro Shop, so I want to thank Johnny Morris for allowing us to do that. Great guy, great family, great business. Thank you also for the incredible welcome. For me, it's awesome to be able to be here, to be able to go around the country. But it's also great for me to be able to talk to outdoorsmen and women, hunters, fishermen, shooters. I'm all of those things. I'm a competitive shooter. Travel the country doing that. Been lucky to be able to hunt all over the world, especially in my backyard, because sometimes that's the nicest when you can just go. You know, so much of that experience, so much of that tradition is actually the work that goes into it beforehand, whether that's setting up your own tree stands, whether that's doing all the work, cutting the shooting lanes, hunt with a bow, shotgun, rifle, handgun, do it all. And it's great. This year was a little bit rougher. Something's been going on, right? I say the last 18 months has been the longest 10 years of my life. And so I had to cancel a couple of hunts, and I haven't been in a tree stand much, but it's been warm, so I think it's going to be a late rut. So either way, my hunting season starts on Wednesday. Yeah, well, you got to get out there. For me, it's great to be able to also talk to outdoorsmen and hunters, sportsmen and women, because it was a big part of my life growing up. And it's something we all have to consider when we talk about this election. For me, I got lucky. I got someone who introduced me to the outdoors at a very young age. My grandfather, he was a blue-collar guy from what was then communist Czechoslovakia. He was an electrician. And he spoke with my father, and he recognized how lucky we were to have all the good fortune that we had growing up in our family, in this country, whether it be for education, experience, all these things. But he said, you know, Donald, your son has to see the other side as well. And so from about the age of 5, he took me with him to, well, again, communist Czechoslovakia, and I spent 4 to 6 weeks there every summer my whole life. I spoke the language, and it was basically, there's the woods. I'll see you at dark. Yeah. But it was those experiences at a young age that really transformed me, changed my life a lot. And so I've been a very vocal proponent of the outdoors, of woodsmanship, of hunting, of fishing, of shooting, because I know what it did for me as a kid. And I've also seen how it's been demonized in the media, and I've taken my share of heat for being a hunter and not doing the usual, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again, but actually fighting back and saying, you know, hunters are the original conservationists. We're the reason that you have the great lands, public lands that we have in this country, which we're going to preserve. The reason you have the incredible national park system, because it all started with Roosevelt, who was one of the original conservationists. So, you know, for me, and for my 5 kids, you know, the outdoors isn't just a photo op that we do because we happen to be in politics now. It's actually our way of life, as it is for so many of you here. For us, come Friday afternoon, we get out of New York City, and we get up to the country. I have a cabin in the Catskills, and my kids are riding ATVs, and they're fishing, and they're starting to shoot, and they're getting into that lifestyle that was so good for me, because I say, if I can get them off of a couch, away from a video game, and into the woods, onto a stream, onto a range, there's so much they're going to get from that experience in terms of discipline, patience, all these things that you don't hear about from kids these days. So I think that's the ultimate form for them to be able to get out. And if I can help continue that tradition, that great American tradition of the outdoors, then I'm doing them a major service for life. So it's great to be able to do that, and I'm honored to be able to do that. And I see all the looks on people's faces here. It's so much that. So that's something, it's one of many things, but that's something we're going to preserve for this country going forward, because it is important and it's something we have to do. We have an incredible opportunity beyond just that. We have the opportunity to send DC a message.
Amen.
That I'm a pretty conservative guy, but candidly, politicians on both sides of the aisle have failed us repeatedly. Right? I'd love to be able to say it's just them, it's not us, but it's not. Both sides. We've watched them for decades make promise after promise after promise. No delivery on those promises. We've watched them tell us that things are going to be great, we're going to make it better. It hasn't gotten better. We've watched them ship our jobs abroad along with the American dream to countries in far-off lands. Again, false promises. I guess the most recent one's obviously Obamacare. It's going to be affordable.
No!
Yeah, until your premiums double. And by the way, and that's before you get into the fact that most of the people in the silver and the bronze plans have a $9,000 deductible. So unless that bison falls on your head, right, you don't have insurance. For me, again, as the father of 5 young kids, I know, because they're in a doctor's office probably every week. Right? It's pretty much par for the course. I'd say, one of them is in every 5 weeks, so there's one a week, and that's $500 here, $1,000 here, $1,500 here. It's not affordable healthcare. That's nonsense. That's optics. That's a deal for the sake of doing a deal, like the Iran deal. They just want to show up and show you that they did something. Right? Like Nancy Pelosi said it best. Well, we have to pass it before we know what's in it. Are you serious? That's where we are. That's where we've come as a country. So I think we have a great opportunity to do something special, to tell DC that we've had enough, to have an outsider, someone who wasn't part of the problem, someone who didn't create the ridiculous amounts of debt that we have. Think about this. I see a lot of young people in the crowd. They're the ones ultimately going to be stuck with these problems, because if the debt is now 20 trillion, 8 years ago it was 10 trillion. Just do the math. Extrapolate that out a little bit further. Well, guess what? If any one of you, myself included, ran our households like the government has run this country, we'd be living on the streets. You can't allow that to continue. It's not sustainable. It doesn't work. So, what I want to do is on Tuesday, I want to send DC a message. We've had enough. And we're going to hold you accountable for a change. And we're going to expect you to deliver on the false promises that have been delivered to us for generations now. And I know that I can do that because I've seen him do it time and time again. When we talk about jobs, I hear about politicians talking about jobs. I've been listening for 18 months. I go, it's interesting, they're talking about jobs. Unfortunately, they've never actually created a job. They talk about it like it's this magical unicorn that you can summon. You push a button and jobs miraculously appear. I know, because I saw our opponent, Hillary Clinton, make those same promises when she came to be a senator in New York. She promised us 200,000 jobs. Well, do you know how many she delivered after her tenure in New York in the Senate? No, less than 0. We actually lost 8,000 jobs. But again, what's going to be different about this set of promises? Nothing. We've seen it and we're sick of it. The lies, the fraud, the abuse, the graft, the pay to play. It never ends. What message does it send? Not only to other politicians, but to our children. If we elect the most corrupt candidate in the history of the U.S. presidency. Is it telling them that it's okay to sell out America for your own interests? No. I turn on the TV every morning and I watch the liberal media. I watch them, it's amazing. They talk about, we can't hurt the feelings of people in these far-off lands, countries that hate our values, that hate our freedoms, that hate our religion, that hate everything about us, that if they could push a button, they'd wipe us off the face of the earth. But they're more worried about their feelings than they are about the safety and the well-being of our kids and grandkids, of our loved ones. They're more worried about their feelings than they are our incredible veterans coming home from fighting those wars. Our broken education system, okay? We spend more per capita than any country in the world on education. And we are number 28 or 30, one of them, 28 or 30 behind a long list of third world countries. Think about that. We are the country that put men on the moon. And we are now 28 or 30 behind a long list of countries that most people couldn't find on a map. It's pretty scary. It doesn't bode well. It doesn't bode well for the future of our young kids. Certainly not mine. Mine is the first generation where we feel we're probably better off than our parents. but our kids are going to be worse off than us. That too isn't acceptable. We have to put an end to the lies, to the deceit, to the fraud, to the abuse.
Amen.
DC has to start working for you again, not for themselves. Any small business owners here? Yeah. How bad have the regulations become? How bad is the tax code become? How complicated is it just to keep your doors open? Or for those of you who are starting out from scratch, I mean, I can't even imagine starting from scratch. The amount of red tape to keep some lawyer in DC in a nice air-conditioned office gainfully employed. That's what it is. Our politicians keep their buddies getting all the good contracts. They keep their buddies in these systems, regulating you, telling you how to run your business from 1,000 miles away without having any understanding of what it is that you actually do in that business. It has to end. I think you're right. It's time to create a swamp. It's time to impose congressional permanence to prevent these guys from sitting there and parking themselves in one position for 40 years getting rich while doing nothing for the people that they represent. It's time to prevent those same people and the other highest people in government from then going and lobbying against our interests for the richest countries in the world like Saudi Arabia, making millions of dollars selling out America for their benefit. My father wants to put an end to that too. Restrict them from doing that once they've learned all of our secrets. That has to stop. We got to put this country back to work. We have to unleash the potential that is within this nation, that has been there from day one, but that hasn't had a voice in forever. As long as I can remember. It's interesting that the brash guy from New York is the voice of the people, but when I look at what he does every day for the last 18 months, when I see that 10, 15, 20,000 people that are going and watching him speak 2, 3, 4 times a day, I say, wow, maybe an unlikely messenger as a messenger of change. But you know what? The whole system's up against him too. We're not just going candidate versus candidate, policy versus policy, track record, if you can call it that, versus track record. If we were doing that, this would have been over a long time ago. But when you have the Wall Street elite, Hollywood elite, the media elite, and even the political elite on both sides of the aisle going against you, guess what? You're probably doing something right. Those people have gotten very rich, while the rest of the country hasn't seen an effective pay raise in 20 years. Trust me, I think that system works for them. They're more than happy to keep it. That's why I say it's a bipartisan problem, because both sides on the political spectrum are more than happy to keep this system that has gotten them very rich. Okay? We have a unique opportunity, because there's not many people that have my father's experience, his accomplishments, his track record, that would willingly get into this process. I always say, he doesn't need this job. Right? He can sit back, he can do whatever he wants for the rest of his life, play with his grandkids, play golf all day long, and instead, he put himself through this brutal and difficult process.
Amen.
And he did that for you.
Yep.
He's doing that because he loves this country and what it stands for. He's doing that because he loves the American dream, and he wants to make sure that that exists for all of you, for your kids and your grandkids behind them. He's doing that so all of you can live the same dream that he did, to be able to start a great business and run it without government in every aspect of your life. And you can start a great family. Wouldn't it be nice to bring back the family structure that's been so decimated in this country?